Apologies there on the name. And we're going to go ahead and start on Andrew Shrout. It's going to be a copy of Sleight of Hand to start the game. And really that's more of a tell. Playing Sleight of Hand is actually a pretty strong tell. There's few decks in Modern that can play this card.
Right now it's generally going to be either specifically this Storm deck or somebody being fancy.
Yeah, Ad Nauseam still plays it, but certainly wouldn't play it off this land.
Right.
Second land here for Shrout, and he passes the turn. Clay did not have a turn one play.
Yeah, with no discard spell, you
yeah,
kind of wonder what's going on here.
It's really unusual for Death Shadow to not have a 1 mana play.
When you see 4 color, you might have thought white as the 4th color for the Jund Shadow deck. This is actually a blue splash.
Okay, so it's blue. Stubborn Denial is generally the main thing to get off the blue splash.
Stubborn Denial is mighty good against Gifts Ungiven.
Yeah, white is frequently for sideboard cards plus Ranger of Eos, Lingering Souls. First play from Clay is going to be a turn 2 Tarmogoyf. Now he also casts it off Watery Grave. So that's at least to tell, we have 4 colors of mana on the first 2 land drops. Tarmogoyf a 2/3. Now Andrew Shrout, he may try to go for a combo turn here. Here is Goblin Electromancer. He's doing well to not expose it until a turn he wants to do something. So now Pyretic Ritual makes 3 red. Manamorphose is going to be cast for 1. It's going to turn 2, so he'll go to 2 red, 2 blue, and draw a card.
Another ritual from here makes it so the Gifts Ungiven will just win the game on this turn. He can already value gifts for a lot here. And this is a spot where, theoretically, if he gets the gifts pile, which you usually see, which is both red 2-mana rituals and Manamorphose and Past in Flames, Clay has the potential to give him the wrong cards if that's the play here.
So 2 red, 2 blue. Here's Gifts Ungiven. Andrew will get to float 1 mana on this. We'll see what color he's keeping.
And Shrout does have a backup Desperate Ritual, so this should end the game on this turn. The way it works, you're going to find a bunch more rituals. You're going to get access to Past in Flames. And with Gifts Ungiven in your graveyard, once you cast Past in Flames, you get all these rituals again. You get the gifts. You gifts into a way to kill. You get another Past in Flames if you need it, but you'll have more than enough mana to do all that. And Shrout will be grape shotting for lethal on this turn. You could even gifts into more gifts again with the iteration with the way the deck is configured.
Yeah, and this makes sense. Basically, once you have if you have an Electromancer in play and a yard full of rituals with Past in Flames, it is not terribly difficult to figure out how to kill from there. Andrew still has 1 mana floating also. Likely a red mana, so he'll use that to cast a Desperate Ritual from his hand. That's going to go up to 3 red. Now use Manamorphose to go to 2 red, 2 blue, and draw a card. So 4 mana floating for Andrew. Colors are well taken care of. Past in Flames cast for 3. He's going to get to float 1 red on top of that. So still is 1 mana floating, yeah, and it indeed is red, so he can start the ritual chain again. You see that he's cast 7 spells this turn as well. So flashes back Pyretic, goes up to 3 red. Another Pyretic will put him up to 5 red. Means his 9th spell of the turn.
And once you're at this phase, this is not a build of Storm that can fizzle from here.
No, it's not random. This is just deterministic. See, he makes 2 blue off Manamorphose, drawing a card. He will cast his graveyard, then he will recast the Gifts Ungiven, and that will find Grape Shot.
And because the Past in Flames was put in his hand, he doesn't even have to do anything fancy like find a second copy. He's just able to give everything flashback another time.
Right, so you see here he goes up to 7 red. He flashes back Gifts Ungiven. He could just, actually just put, so at this point it's very easy.
Yes. Being able to Gifts Ungiven 2 or 3 times in a turn makes it really easy to achieve the requisite threshold amount and to find every spell that you need.
Well, this shows the power of cards like Goblin Electromancer and Barrel Chief of Compliance. They're really what the deck hinges on. You see why Shrout wasn't going to play one out turn 2 and expose it. Serum Visions from Shrout down to single blue. He is at 12 spells. Clay's at 15. So he actually could just flashback Gifts Ungiven, flashback putting just Grape Shot in the graveyard, flashback Past in Flames, give Grape Shot flashback, flashback Grape Shot for 15.
Yep.
It's going to do a little more than that. Grape Shot's already in his hand. Okay, cast it. This is for 13, flashback Past in Flames, do it again. So game 1, turn 3 here for Andrew Shrout with Blue-Red Storm.
That is one thing I like about this build of Storm versus previous iterations is you do just win when you start gifting. I really hate sitting through those long turns that might not kill you.
See, I like that stuff because that's when it becomes like, those are the mathier Storm decks. You know, like when you're doing probabilistic plays. This one is way more of a chess-style Storm deck. Where
even just describing the math-based one, you made me pretty bored.
Yeah, I get that. Like, there's not that much dynamic. Once you start comboing with this Storm deck, it's not, you know, you're not leaving much up to chance.
Right.
So we're going to go look at the sideboards. For Clay Spicklemire, that seemed like just a very unusual game. You know, turn 1, do nothing. Turn 2, Tarmogoyf is an exceptionally poor start for Death Shadow.
Yes, no access to early discard. Tarmogoyf on turn 2 is fine. Just, you know, when you're going to die on your opponent's 3rd turn, it's particularly less fine.
So for Spicklemire sideboard, though, it looks like he does have a lot of great answers here. Starting with the top, 4 copies of Nihil Spellbomb. That sounds excellent here.
Yep. Being able to disrupt the graveyard makes it so Shrout really can't Past in Flames and combo that way. Then Collective Brutality is an option. It's a little bit slow, but if it's just a turn 2 Electromancer, it's very good. You can use it to find Gifts Ungiven. Fatal Push is real nice. It cleans up all those mana-reducing creatures. Snapcaster Mage is redundancy on all of his good spells. That's basically what we're looking at here.
Yeah, the other one's not great, but that'll do a ton for Clay. Now, because it's now Spellbomb, it does mean there's no card like Surgical Extraction in his deck, and that's something we sometimes see in Death Shadow sideboards.
And Surgical is a card that the Storm deck has a very difficult time playing around. You just kind of have to hope that they don't have it.
For Andrew Shrout, 4 Lightning Bolts, 4 Dispels, 3 Empty the Warrens, 2 Dismember, and 2 Pieces of the Puzzle, which is basically just a draw spell for the deck. Empty the Warrens, I assume, comes in here. It generally comes in most Storm matchups.
Yeah. When you're playing against this deck that's heavy on discard, is likely to disrupt you, you're going to more often go for the empty kill instead of the Grape Shot kill, so going heavier on that makes sense. I suspect that Pieces of the Puzzle is in the sideboard specifically for matchups like this, because it's a draw 2. You can also flip over your Past in Flames as well, maybe set up a turn that way. That stuff all looks pretty good to me.
All right. Well, they're going to get ready for a second game here. Now, at StarCgames.com, we have our weekly sale, so we have something different on the store, a different deal every week. The weekly deal this week is we have up to 30% off of all MP or moderately played cards. So if you're collecting things for, say, a cube or some deck that, you know, you don't mind, you want to get a very good price on cards, and you expect the cards to see play because that's what you're planning to do with them, it's a great opportunity. Those are all on sale. So those will be on sale all weekend. You can find them at StarCgames.com store. You can also check in on Monday morning at 11 o'clock as we start next week's weekly sale.
Yeah. I definitely take advantage of these sales for building my cubes. I like my cards a little beat up if my plan is to shuffle them all the time anyway.
Yeah, if you're going to play with them, there's no real sense that if you get them, they're not going to be mint for long if you get them mint. So might as, you know.
Right.
You can get more cards this way. So looking at our other matches, this is the first one to finish. Shrout up a game on Spicklemire. Mentioned down the top, we have Spencer Garnier playing Grixis Delver against Aaron Kasprzak's Landstill deck. We also have Jarvis Yu and Chris Anderson playing Blue-Red Control versus Mardu Vehicles.
I'm a little surprised not to see Anderson in the Legacy seat. He's got a good amount of Legacy success in Tour history. Big Elves player, also played a good amount of the blue-black Tezzeret deck in Legacy.
Yeah, for a while, Chris Anderson was really the brewer in Legacy. We even saw, you know, he'd have the Wild Growth combo kind of build, which was really Chris Anderson's own deck for a while there.
Played some blue-green Enchantress.
Yeah, that's the one. It's like Enchantress combo, Cloud of Fairies and Snap.
Words of Wisdom?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
That was a sweet deck. All right. Well, kind of as predicted, though, Game 1 in Standard does conclude. Jarvis Yu with Mardu Vehicles is the winner of that one. You mentioned this is going to be a hard matchup for Anderson. Now, it's not a sweep as the last game one concludes. Aaron Kasprzak with land still actually does defeat Crixus Delver in the first game. So the game split. The game one split between the two teams.
You have to imagine that Grixis Delver was on the radar as they constructed this landstill deck.
I would think so. I mean, with as many players that have decided to play Delver for this weekend, it's probably not a secret that that's what they're going to play against. So now we see a more Death Shadowy start for Spicklemire. He's going to start by going to 16 with some Street Wraiths.
Pretty good to make up to the hand. Death Shadow or two hanging out, and a Thoughtseize.
So I get the full Lava Axe plus more. Down to 13 now. Maybe if Thoughtseize could go to 11 on the first turn. Looks like there's going to be a discard of some sort. Maybe either Inquisition or Thoughtseize.
There's pieces of the puzzle.
Yeah, let's make it a full Thoughtseize. Go to 11. So on Shrout side, we see it looks like just one land. It is a dual land, though. Spirebluff Canal. He has a Barrel, Lightning Bolt, Desperate Ritual, Serum Visions, another Desperate Ritual, and pieces of the puzzle.
This is something I was a little bit curious about. So he had 4 Lightning Bolts in his sideboard, and he's playing against a deck that really wants to beat up its own life total. And it looks like he has elected to bring in Lightning Bolts, and that Lava Spike could be pretty impactful here.
It is just a Lava Spike, though, isn't it? There are not many creatures in Clay's deck that really die to Lightning Bolt.
Yeah. Unless Clay just plays into it, that should never kill a Death Shadow. It should never kill a Tarmogoyf. It will never kill a Street Wraith. But yeah, it is one thing about this matchup is the Storm deck's going to be going very low on cards because the Shadow deck's going to throw a bunch of discard spells at them. So Lightning Bolt is just a way to win with a small number of cards.
Yeah, similar reason as to why he's boarded in pieces of the puzzle. Clay decides to take the Barrel with his first discard spell. We go back to Shrout. He's drawn Remand. That's interesting. So the deck does play Remand, 4 in the main. I wasn't sure if we'd see them post sideboard. The so few expensive cards in the Death Shadow deck. Shrout casts Serum Visions, draws his second land. These top 2 cards in the scry are both non-lands. We'll see if he wants either of them. I don't think the answer is no.
It's possible that the blue mana that Spicklemire exposed in game 1 suggested that Remand would be good against this particular build. When you want to fight a counter war, Remand's pretty solid.
I guess so, because the Death Shadow deck can't recast a blue spell if you remand it.
Right, generally that should not be the case. And the remand will also generally cost 1 mana when you're casting it.
Inquisition of Kozilek from Clay. Looks at the same hand, sees that Andrew picked up a Polluted Delta last turn, and that remand.
All of these cards are kind of fair game to take out of the hand here. The piece of the puzzle is a draw too. Depending on how Spicklemire is going to follow up from here, the remand could be a big tempo swing. And having 2 Desperate Rituals is a pretty good way to get a lot of mana, certainly for a big Empty the Warrens turn. So taking one of those makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, this is the interesting part. Why Storm can be really appealing is it is very good against targeted discard. You can get hit by Thoughtseize 2 or 3 times without paying much of a price. And Clay will now cast Death's Shadow. He's brought himself down to 8, so this is going to be a 5/5 Shadow.
And Clay finds Watery Grave off that fetch land, which will represent Stubborn Denial going forward. Shrout has a hand that's pretty weak against Stubborn Denial.
Andrew did just pick up Empty the Warrens with that draw, and that I think we're going to see him try for a value empty here, as he's going to fetch for a land. He does have 2 rituals.
Empty for 6 is lethal on the table, right? If he just rituals, empty, makes 6 goblins,
has
Bolt
in his hand.
Exactly.
Yeah, now 1 more blocker would stop that, but not really. I think that's going to be the play. Ritual, empty. A good draw for Shrout. Now, that couldn't have been taken with Inquisition anyway. And now he is going for the 1/1 goblins. He'll get 6 of them for his trouble.
Yeah, and especially given that Clay had the Death Shadow to cast on this turn, it's very likely that Desperate Ritual is just the take on the previous turn with that discard spell.
So 6 goblin tokens will be made for Andrew Shrout. I'm looking at Clay's side. I don't know if he has a clean answer to this.
This is going to be tough to work through because, again...
I don't know that you can...
So the card to punch through a bunch of tokens out of these Death Shadow decks is usually going to be Teamer Battle Rage.
Sure.
That is not a tool that Clay has.
No, the 4-color decks generally don't play Battle Rage.
And had to make room for these blue spells.
Right. For 3 Stubborn Denials. So we'll see what Clay can do. I guess you're looking for Battle Rage, you'd be looking at that's an offensive answer, and he's going to have to go for a defensive answer instead.
Which is tough for Mate Life.
Yeah, I mean, he has a Kozilek's Return in his sideboard. I don't know that he's boarded that in. It's possible he could fully escalate this Collective Brutality, killing a goblin, taking the Lightning Bolt, gaining 2 life. That would buy him a lot of time.
Yeah. Casting Tarmogoyf here is also pretty reasonable.
It means that Andrew would be able to put him to 1. He'd be dead to, well, I guess just a Lightning Bolt.
Yeah.
Or a Grape Shot.
That is the problem with that line.
And stakes upped on this one in a quick 2-0. Jarvis Yu, the winner over Chris Anderson. That's why I see Chris Anderson now backing up his teammate. They're going to need to win this game to keep their team's hopes alive for the match.
And this is a tough spot. If you wait on the Collective Brutality, it's likely you won't be able to hit the Lightning Bolt with it.
Yeah, and I think that's what turned out to be the difference. He's going to escalate, killing a goblin, taking a card from Shrout's hand. Now it's Bolt, which means he leaves Shrout with pieces of the puzzle. Shrout can't cast it just yet, but that's a good card to have here. Now, Clay did not double escalate. He did not drain 2. Go back to Andrew Shrout. Serum Visions draws him a Grape Shot. Not really very castable things. You see a Serum Visions, and it looks like a Manamorphose on top. Not sure if he wants either of those.
Yeah, Manamorphose Grape Shot's only good for 2 points. Not very exciting from this spot.
And Shrout finds himself in a resource light situation. If he bottoms both and searches for a land to try to cast pieces of the puzzle, it's not clear that that's fast enough anymore. The scary part when playing combo against Death Shadow is that they get to cast discard spells for 2 straight turns, and then they kill you 2 turns later.
Right.
It's really unfair. And Andrew's feeling that now. You know, he had his hand torn apart, and his opponent's got a 5/5.
Whatever your plan is, Serum Visions makes it more likely that you're able to find the cards, but the question is, do you have the time to spend a mana on that?
So top-bottom means he either put Manamorphose or Serum Visions on top of his deck. Stubborn Denial, the draw for Spicklemire. That's online.
It's a really strong pickup.
Strong, yeah, because he can play his second Shadow and leave up the hard counter. And you see he starts to go to work. Here's a swing with the 5/5. Shrout will go to 14. And he'll do just that, play another 5/5 Shadow. 5/5s for 1, man. They're good.
It's above average. A veritable gourmet gangler.
Yeah. And actually, correction, that wasn't a Manamorphose. That was a Dismember that Shrout put on top. He'll pay 4 life to go for a Dismember, and this is going to really not work out for him. So Shrout's down to 10, which is exactly the amount of power that Clay has in play. And you got to think he's going to Stubborn Denial this.
Yeah, especially given that on the following turn, unless he draws a land, he can't Tarmogoyf plus Stubborn Denial.
Right.
Just taking 5 and leaving yourself dead to Lightning Bolt, even though he would have the Stubborn Denial, it's still a tough spot because he's dead to the crack on the following turn from the Goblins on top of that.
So Shrout's last 2 cards are Pieces of the Puzzle and Grape Shot, but neither of them are castable right now. So now he has to decide if he needs to, I guess, I was going to say if he needs to try and suicide in, but because of that Dismember, he's dead on the swing back.
Yep. He could theoretically attack with 4 Goblins. Doesn't really get him anywhere, though. And if you attack with 4 Goblins, yeah, you'd survive on 1 from a Crackback with 2 Shadows and 1 Chump Block. It's not a very inviting attack, but he has to do something.
Swings 3, so this will suicide 1 and push 2 damage. Clay goes to 6. It leaves him, well, we'll see. Clay will swing both Shadows. Looks like Shrout's going to block 1. He's going for a burnout on the next turn.
From 6, there's really nothing he has to be worried about from here.
Yeah, I mean, I guess he wants enough chump blockers where land Pieces of the Puzzle, chump away the team, and then untap with Lethal Burn is a possibility. Says go. Now, there was no Tarmogoyf from Clay. He's representing something else.
Looks like he picked up another Stubborn Denial.
Oh my goodness.
So he should be safe against whatever.
Well, yeah, that's gross. Here's Barrel from Shrout. Shrout went down to 3 last turn. Shadows were 7/7s. And Andrew will swing exactly 1 Goblin. That puts Clay down to 5. But he gets to sit behind that Stubborn Denial. Very close game here. Both Shadows swing again. They're both lethal, so 2 more Goblins are gone. And it'll be a land. Wow, and a fetch from Clay. Is he going to go to 2?
I think it's just going to be basic so we can Tarmogoyf, leave up Stubborn Denial.
Okay, that's 4 is better than 2 here.
It would take attack with both creatures and double Lightning Bolt for Shrout to get in for lethal here, which he only has Island. Spire Bluff Canal, one of the cards in hand is also Pieces of the Puzzle. He still knows about that.
So Tarmogoyf 4/5. So all 3 creatures are lethal as we go back over to Andrew Shrout. Draws a Steam Vents. He's going to try for Pieces of the Puzzle. Now I believe if this gets Stubborn Denialed, yeah, Clay just lets it resolve. He'll counter the next thing. So we see Grape Shot, Lightning Bolt. He can take both. Well, if Andrew had more lands, this would. I mean, this is actually a very good Pieces of the Puzzle. It's not going to win him the game because. Yeah. Over in Legacy, we're going to a game 3. Garnier takes the game over Kasprzak, so Grixis Delver evens it out. And it looks like this might be going toward a 3rd game as well. A swing, wait, Land and Bolt and Stubborn Denial. So Shrout successfully there forces Clay to have that 2nd Stubborn Denial, but Clay did have it. So we now have game 3s in 2 different matches.
Getting down to it.
Yeah. Look back at the sideboards there. So from Shrout, we saw Pieces of the Puzzle, Dismember, and Empty the Warrens, and Lightning Bolts all enter the deck. Interesting. So you played, I know, some of this Storm deck. When you do something as heavy as that, what gets boarded out for this?
So he left in at least some number of Remand, which is a card you're kind of looking at. There's 2 copies of Apostle's Blessing in this build, and that's largely going to insulate you against Abrupt Decay is the reason you would play that over some other counter spell.
So I'd assume that's gone.
Right, given the fact that you just kind of have to play a lot of cards and you can't really protect your mana reducer, that seems like a reasonable card to board out here. You can trim on a lot of stuff.
Right, I mean, he's looking at the potentially he's boarded in 11 cards. So does that, what I guess I was going to get at, does Gifts Ungiven leave? Is it possible that that's what's missing?
If your plan is to just aggressively empty, Gifts Ungiven doesn't really lend itself to that.
Right. So like grape shots get cut and gifts get cut?
In particular in this build, it's hard to move away from gifts, especially if you're moving towards pieces of the puzzle. Because pieces will, on average, give you less material or less meaningful material.
They're both draw spells, and gifts are just better.
Right.
Yeah.
I assume that you're going to be looking at a lot of 3s in Shrout's post-sideboard deck.
Okay. Oh, so just like one, maybe some Sleight of Hands can leave?
Yeah.
That card's really bad anyway.
Could be trimming on the mana reducers as well, given that they're just very likely to die.
All right, well, so some number of those, the worst, maybe some of your worst cantrips. And maybe there's not full 4s of all these things we're looking at boarding. And, you know, he could play some Lightning Bolts without playing 4 Lightning Bolts.
Yeah, this isn't the Pyromancer Ascension version. You can trim on numbers.
You're absolutely right. Well, they're going to go to a third game. Now, we mentioned that this month in Game Night, Star City Games has been doing the Imperious Perfect promotion. And that creature collection is also available at StarCityGames.com on playmats, sleeves, and in player bundles. It's the Imperious Perfect. It's your favorite elf or cat if you prefer. StarCityGames.com/creature collection.
If you prefer.
Ooh.
See, that's
got a bunch of puns in it when you put it that way.
Some next level punnery. Or punishment if you're not into that.
You see both teammates kind of helping out here. Jarvis Yu looks to be in on Jarvis helping out Shrout in Modern. Chris Anderson over on the Legacy side of things.
Jarvis apparently not terribly interested in their Legacy match.
That's how I always get in these. You know, if there's a match where I don't feel like I know anything about it,
But Jarvis plays like mostly Legacy.
Yeah,
he plays so much Legacy.
That's true. Well, Storm is just more interesting than Delver. I don't know what to tell you.
Wow. Shots fired.
Shrout will be back on the play here for a third game. Looks like he might get that second game as well. It got very close.
Yeah, if a small number of things went differently, Shrout could have ended up with that game.
He did force his opponent. I mean, he forced Clay to draw 2 Stubborn Denials. If either of those spells had resolved, it would have been a different story. Bauble, starting from Clay, checks his own top card. Then Street Wraith to draw it. I like to look at my card before I draw it.
The idea is that he's going to play a fetch land. If he wants to draw it, look at it first, Street Wraith into it.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Now he plays the fetch land, goes to 15, 13, so 7s himself for a turn 1 Thoughtseize, and we'll get a look now at Shrout's hand. He's got a 2nd and 3rd land. He's got Past in Flames, Remand, Pyretic Ritual, and Lightning Bolt. Now, Ryan, we were wondering what he boarded out. I got an interesting thought. What about all the creatures? All 7 of them.
In game 2, we did see that 1 barrel.
Okay, maybe not. What about...
Or do we see 2?
What if I get rid of the goblins?
Sure. I haven't seen any goblins.
Yeah.
And that was something that I suggested, you know, given if you expect them to die a lot, you don't want a ton of them.
Yeah, my opponent will probably still keep in Fatal Push. Remand is taken by Clay. This is interesting. The second time we've seen him really prioritize taking Remand. And despite a deck from Clay, which is so low on the mana curve, he still really views that card as a threat.
And this is another hand where the Ritual is quite threatening as well. It was clearly between those 2 cards. Yeah, taking Past in Flames not very effective. It's not going to do anything until Shrout has a reasonable threshold of what's happening anyway.
Taking Lightning Bolt's pretty poor too.
Right. But the Ritual is the most potentially problematic when Shrout casts it.
Grape Shot here, the draw from Shrout. So this looks more like a turn, you know, we're not going to see a quick empty from him this time. This hand is setting up to full kill. Clay will keep taking it apart. Inquisition of Kozilek sees the hand again, sees that it's picked up Grape Shot. So you're thinking, and I like this, maybe you just take Pyretic Ritual to slow him down.
Yeah. Taking the Grape Shot doesn't accomplish a whole lot. If you could cast Bolt and Grape Shot in a turn that represents a good amount of mana, Clay has to be mindful of that with how the game goes from here. So that's something that you want to watch. But again, just letting Shrout build up rituals, that is the most potential downside going down the line. So can't take Past in Flames. Interesting, he goes for the Lightning Bolt. It is also true that a Shrout just builds up a bunch of Lightning Bolts. It's relatively easy to kill Clay with those over time. Shrout picks up a couple, 3 Lightning Bolts. Clay is intending to do more damage to himself from this point in time, so getting that in the hand does make some sense. And another discard spell coming down for Clay here is going to take care of the ritual anyway, presumably.
All right, Smupgate, over in Legacy, we do have Land still winning 2-1. Now, we do need to apologize to the 2 players here. We have their names switched, so the teams aren't exactly correct. Spencer Garnier teaming with Chris Anderson and Clay Spicklemire. But Land still, piloted by Garnier, did win. So now the match is at, the round is at 1 match apiece. The Modern will decide it. So just more discard and trading here. So we're going to go back to Clay. He hasn't landed a threat here. Now that he's down to 12, Death Shadow is possible to play. He'll play Shadow and then protect it by playing a fetch land.
He knows that Shrout's hand is just Grape Shot, Past in Flames.
But I do like, and you see that not one of those sideboard Nile spell bombs played by Clay.
That makes it really difficult to leverage Past in Flames.
Yeah, it's... Shrout will cast Serum Visions. You know, I do really like Storm. One of the things that's scary about it, though, is it is pretty easy to disrupt. Something like this is just a pain.
So the idea with the sideboarding philosophy was you made Nile Spellbomb matter less by going heavy on Empty the Warrens. You try for that. You can do that out of your hand for an amount that will frequently be enough to win the game. The issue is your hand gets eaten up. It's hard to set up in these slow sideboard games. The combination of the discard and the graveyard hate is a huge problem.
Exactly. A bunch of discard into Nile Spellbomb is really good.
And these aren't even the best sideboard cards or sideboard strategies against the Storm deck. When your opponent has Surgical Extraction, it's very difficult to win games.
Now, Andrew has successfully put some dead cards in Clay's hand. There is at least 1 Abrupt Decay in his hand. That's not going to go anywhere. He's got Stubborn Denial, though at the moment it is not ferocious. It's just a Force Spike.
Crack Fetch Shock makes it ferocious.
Right, it turns into a 4/4.
Which, when he's going to start attacking, I assume he's going to want to do that at some point here.
All right, well, Shock and Fetch Crack certainly adds enough power here, so Clay is going to knock himself down a few more life points.
Second fetch land, finds 2 Shock lands.
Right, so dealing 6 more should put him down to 6, so Death Shadow up to a 7/7.
And therefore a 3-turn clock.
Yeah, here's 7. Shrout will go down to 13. Abrupt Decay and Stubborn Denial, the last 2 cards in Clay's hand.
That's a hand that makes it difficult to lose to anything except for Empty the Warrens.
Well, a pile of Lightning Bolts could do it. I guess there's a covering it with 1 Stubborn Denial. You know, enough bolts into Grape, like Bolt, Grape Shot would do it.
Sure.
Correction there. There's a fetch land earlier, Andrew Shrout at 12.
That shouldn't be too significant.
No, Death Shadow's still the same quantity of stuff. And I think the way these games have played out, it really explains why Shrout's boarding in the Lightning Bolts. It does keep feeling, you know, like Clay's putting himself low enough that maybe Shrout can just finish him off.
Well, the thing about the way that the matchup plays, you get hit by a bunch of discard spells, you assume some amount of graveyard hate. It's really difficult to make these Storm hands, and yeah, on the surface, he's putting Lava Spike in his combo deck. But part of his combo is Grape Shot to do a lot of damage anyway.
It is a damage-based combo.
It's a plan,
Yeah.
and it's a bad matchup. So you have to have a clever plan.
Serum Visions from Shrout. He'll draw and scry. Looks like he's got Sleight of Hand and maybe Manamorphose on top. I'll ship both. Perhaps not that. He got Sleight of Hand off the Serum Vision, so he'll go for that. This actually is starting to build Storm for a Grape Shot. And found, I believe, just a land off that Sleight of Hand. It was 2 lands were his options, and indeed that was the case. 2 spells this turn. It's not really enough. He built Storm, but for what? He was hoping, I believe here, to build a big Grape Shot turn.
His team currently looking at Grape Shot for 3. 2 lands, Grape Shot, Past in Flames against Nile Spell Bomb. There's not much else he can do.
Yeah, I mean, he can Grape Shot for 3, and he's going to do it. The issue is that Clay has Past in Flames covered with the Spell Bomb, and he has the Lethal Bolt covered with the Stubborn Denial. It's just going to be hard for Andrew to win from here. And on end step, Clay will get rid of Shrout's Graveyard. Clay down to 3.
With this Lightning Bolt plan.
Wait, by putting Clay down to 3, Shrout's just dead to a fetch land or a Street Wraith. Well, Clay didn't have either of them, but there was a risk that Andrew just took there.
It's looking like the reason that Shrout probably has Remand in right now is because he intends to remand his own Grape Shot some number of times here.
And Clay is going to use 2 Collective Brutalities to burn Shrout for 4. That's going to do it. Game and match go to the team of Garnier, Spicklemire, and Anderson. Despite